Well, it's time to begin. Good afternoon. Welcome to our panel on social entrepreneurship. I am Dr. Mark Gill, and I teach at the university and serve on the advisory committee for the Office of Faith, Work, and Economics. And we're excited to have you here. We've heard a number of different talks, and this will probably be the most practical during the event. We've assembled an august crew of intellectual thinkers, of practitioners, of supporters, of mentors, of all stripes and all backgrounds to share with us their entrepreneurial experiences and talk to you, both those that submitted business plans as well as those that are thinking they would like to launch a business someday, what it means to be an entrepreneurial and what it means to be an entrepreneurial where faith is one of the key pillars of the foundation of your business or why you even want to launch that business. So my goal is to talk as little as possible, unlike the classes I teach. And first, let me ask the panel if they'll just introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your background in entrepreneurship or experiences you've had in that area. And then we'll start off with our questions and advice that you have for our up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So whoever has the mic, we'll let you go first, then pass it on.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Quillen, and I am a financial advisor. I've owned a business since I was 15 years old. I started when I was 15. I submitted a plan to my city to run my local swimming pool, so I managed that when I was 15 during the summer after my sophomore year. In 2007, I took over and started a women's-only workout facility where we focused on growing the woman for our community and for our homes, not necessarily their body image, but their health. And in the meantime, I've been a financial advisor working towards women small business owners on how they can not only grow themselves, their families, and their business, but the balance between those three avenues that we face every day. So that's where I am and what I do. I'm currently with a firm in Lexington called Legacy Consulting Group, doing financial advising, small business consulting, QuickBooks training, and I'm also a large networker. So I am a president of an organization called Girls for Girls, which is a networking organization for women, and we come in and grow our businesses with faith-based principles. And how can we demonstrate that through our daily activity and our daily work? How can our work be worship? So that's really where I focus on those. Is that too long, too short?
That was perfect.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm George Allen. I teach over at the university in marketing. See many of my students out there. And I am not an entrepreneur. I'm the son of an entrepreneur. My dad had a retail business for many years. But I think I'm here because my experience has been in sales. I just retired from a career of 30 plus years in corporate sales, and given that it's very difficult to be successful as an entrepreneur without understanding some principles of selling, perhaps there'll be something I can share with you that'll be helpful in that area. So, good to be here.
Thank you. My name is Eric Hartman. I am director of the Lexington office of the Kentucky Innovation Network. I'm an employee of the University of Kentucky and work downtown at the Commerce Lexington building in downtown Lexington. In my role, I'm working mentoring and business coach kind of a role, also a little bit of an organizational role of a lot of events having to do with entrepreneurship. Work with a lot of startup companies and startup entrepreneurs. Many are affiliated with universities, but also a lot that are not affiliated with universities, kind of the full spectrum of businesses and markets and things like that. I've been in a role similar to this role and another role similar to this for about the last 2 years, and then before that I ran a startup company for 15 years that was a high-tech type of startup company. So that's my background.
Hi. Whoops. My name is Jerry Moon. I'm from Wake Forest, North Carolina. I'm Dr. Moon's father and Josh Moon's grandfather. I'm very proud of my family, as you would know if you talked to me. This year, I reached 79 years old, and now I think the most important role in my life is I'm the chairman of the board and president of my own life. And makes you stop and think about your philosophy of life and what motivates you. I have always considered myself a facilitator of opportunity, and I have three great sons who I've always considered my only sons, because each one has their own interests and desires in life, and I always tried to focus on them and what they were trying to do. I am an industrial engineer. I have a couple of MBAs, and Jay thought that because of that, I might be able to help some young people to try to organize and get their businesses structured so that they could prepare a decent business plan and sell that to other supporters who might help them. Lonnie, in his presentation the other night, talked about the fact that one of the important things in our life is to realize that all the people we meet and all the problems we face and all the issues that we try to solve, whether we're successful or not, are important stepping stones to where we are. And what is. So from here, whatever comes to me that God presents as a challenge, I take it on as a responsibility and try to face it as a plan and see what we can do about it. I've just, without laboring this, I've been fortunate in my life to have worked in shipyards and machine shops and steel mills and submarines and launched rockets in the space program. I was program coordination manager for building a whole new town in Maryland between Baltimore and Washington that was totally blind, economically blind, and racially blind. It was a great experience, and it still lives today. I've built or been responsible for the planning, design, and construction of about 1,800 federal buildings for Social Security Administration and also the U.S. courts. So I'm a has-been that's done been, and I'm willing to share those connections and the many people that I engaged in the process.
Hi, I'm Aaron Ammerman, and I'm an Asbury graduate. I graduated from the college in 1995. I live in Lexington, so I'm just up the road. But I love Asbury. It's exciting to see all you guys here today, and it's great to see the enthusiasm you have about entrepreneurialism and the topic today. So I'm with UBS. I've been with UBS Financial Services for 21 years. I'm a consultant for institutional investors, so pension funds and banks and family offices, and I also do some financial planning for individual families as well. So it's something I've done ever since I was at Asbury. I actually interned while I was at Asbury with UBS, and I've been there ever since. But it's been a very interesting career for me and something I've enjoyed quite a bit. I'm involved with some of the startup communities here in Lexington as well, so I'm a member of the Bluegrass Angels and a lot of the other groups here locally, which there's quite a few. And so attend a lot of those events and try and participate whenever possible too. But it's great to see you guys here, and hope to add to the discussion today.
My name is Lonnie Riley. I direct a faith-based ministry in southeastern Kentucky in Harlan County, and we've been there about 17 years. And we're involved in entrepreneurship in many levels, from startup to sustainability in the new businesses is very important to us. And I think it came about as a result of seeing businesses start and fail. And I just thought God had a better plan than to start a business and let it fail within 2 years. And so we've been involved in that with a number of years. We have about 15 businesses now, and we have 45 employees. And the Lord continues to multiply that. And so I'm just grateful to be here. By the way, I am a product of the Asbury revival of the late 60s, early 70s. And when God began to move on this campus, that's when the Lord touched my heart as well. So I'm glad to be here today.
My name is Brian Yike. I currently serve as the assistant provost here at Asbury Seminary, and very happy to be working here on this campus. I'm a graduate as well of the seminary, but I also have a background in business. I got an MBA and a business undergrad from Louisiana Tech University quite a number of years ago, and but didn't use that particularly in the business field, but went into the ministry. So I'm an ordained United Methodist pastor. I've done ministry in small rural churches. I've done ministry on staff at large churches, and I've also done a church restart or church plant. So that's a little bit of entrepreneurship right there. I guess I'm the token theologian on the panel because my expertise is in the area of Wesley theology, and so I've studied Wesley, and especially in the way the Wesleyan movement was an evangelistic movement, and looking at how the vision that Wesley had for those early Methodists really drove them. And I think vision is a big part of being an entrepreneur, and so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so the way this will work is if you have questions you would like to ask our panel, raise your hand, and Dr. Kevin Brown will come around with a microphone, I believe. I also have some questions I'll throw out at our panel, so you don't have to ask all of the questions. My first question, if a train is leaving Baltimore, heading east, oh, sorry, that's wrong class. If you had one piece of advice you would give to our entrepreneurs, one succinct piece of advice, what would it be?
Do what you love. If you don't love doing it, it's not worth it. Because if you're going to invest your time, if you're going to sacrifice your time with your family, you need to love what you're doing. If you don't have a passion, it's not worth it. That's my number one advice. Being a small business owner, being an entrepreneur is not a 9-to-5 job. You don't clock in, you don't clock out. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, making your to-do list, and you go back to bed, and then you wake up at 5 and get your day started. You are working in front of your computer at midnight. You are creating, you're talking with a client on the phone while you're making dinner. I mean, it is a 24-hour a day, it's your life. And if you're wanting to run a business or be an entrepreneur, you have to be passionate or you'll drive yourself into the ground.
Okay, other thoughts?
I would suggest to look for problems because problems are opportunity. In fact, I've made it a practice in our family that if anybody says, oh, I got a problem, I say opportunity because that's where the seed of a potential opportunity is to help the person and also to receive your reward, which comes from helping people.
It's hard to boil it down just to one. One thing that I think is very important is being able to embrace, for lack of a better term, the soft skills, being able to think through problems, being able to present how you feel and how you believe to another person, being able to work with others, being able to do all these things that many people in our society struggle with. As a business owner and entrepreneur, if you're able to do that, it's going to help you tremendously to be able to kind of think outside the box, to think outside the mainstream. And I think it's an important skill to develop, and I think it's vital for whatever you're going to pursue. I think as believers, if we're looking at the world through a different lens, we're looking at the world through God's eyes and not necessarily the culture's eyes or even our own. And I think that gives us a different perspective on how we see people and how we see problems and challenges and that sort of thing. Use that to your advantage. It's the right way to do it, but it's something that can help you in whatever you decide to pursue.
I think my input to this would be that to make sure that God is in what you do. Sometimes we have a lot of great ideas, and those great ideas fall on deaf ears. But if God gives you a good idea, it will always be successful. And He will give you the plan in place to make sure that business or whatever thing you may begin sees its end result in God. It starts in God and it ends in Him. And so the business that we create, we make sure God's in it. And most of our businesses are created from needs that we see in the community, that address the community that we live in. It may look different in your town, but if a business has to have some reason to exist, and if you're supplying a need, then that business will be successful. So make sure God's in it, and He'll take care of the rest for you.
I think something that I've learned not only from pastoring churches, but also having a dad who's been an engineer and a businessman, is that you got to be careful not to get your means and your ends mixed up. You've got to keep that end in mind, whatever it is, whatever your business is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, that's what you got to keep before you. It's so easy to get caught up in the means, the ways that you're trying to reach that end. And you get so focused on that and you get so bogged down in that you lose sight of the end goal. And so I think it's really important to keep that end goal in mind, to keep it out in front, to keep that vision in front of you. That's what keeps you going, like she was talking about, when you're up at 3 a.m. in the morning. If you lose that vision, if you lose, you get caught up in the means, then I think you can really get tripped up.
One suggestion I'd make is just to really give some thought to what your value proposition is for your business. What is the unique value that you're bringing? And as a social entrepreneur, don't forget to include in that the good that you're doing, because there's a group of clients, customers, prospects out there who are going to really care about that, and that may be the thing that causes them to choose to do business with you. That doesn't mean you can put out a shoddy product or service. You still have to have excellence in that area. But if that's a piece of what you're offering, is the fact that you're doing good with the way that you're helping others, then let that be a piece of your value proposition and really spend some time thinking about what's the real succinct way that you communicate that to your potential clients.
So I think there's two pieces of being an entrepreneur, at least two, but two big pieces that are kind of opposites that you have to do simultaneously. One of those is cast vision, and we've talked about vision already a couple times. You have to be very clear with your vision. You have to understand it. You need to formulate it. You need to articulate it. But at the same time that you're casting vision, you have to execute. And those are two things that are very difficult and very different. But if you're not executing on your vision, then you're a dreamer. If you're executing with no vision, then I don't know what that makes you, but not very successful. So you have to find a way to do both of those pieces at the same time and to balance a lot of contradictory things that are going on within you at the same time. And I'm assuming we'll get to things like team and other things like that are just so vitally important. And there's so many different skill sets that it's just hard to bring all those pieces together into one person and maintain your rational mindset.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I have a whole list of questions, but I want to give y'all an opportunity as well.
I was wondering if you guys believe that it's more worthwhile for an aspiring entrepreneur to really focus on sales themselves, or to bring in somebody from the outside whose specialty is in sales and they could just focus on that.
So this is largely going to be kind of an issue of where you are in your growth cycle and also what skills you have. You're going to know your product, and you may or may not have the ability to really communicate well about what the value of the product is. In the early days, just out of necessity, you're probably going to need to be the kind of the chief salesperson as you're bringing on other employees, as you're talking to potential investors, and so you need to learn how to do that yourself. But eventually, you're going to want to be able to bring in some people that can allow you to focus in other areas and can help you. And one of the real practical ways to do that as you're starting to grow is to find people that can essentially kind of be part-time salespeople for you, like what we talk about is a manufacturer's representative who just work on a commission, and they may have other companies that they work with. So that can be one way to grow. Some of the entrepreneurs may have another idea about what the role is in sales and how you do that. Anyone else want to speak to that?
I think it's important to think as an entrepreneur there are multiple kinds of sales. So you're probably thinking of sales in a very narrow context, but selling is everything that you do is selling as an entrepreneur. You're selling to your employees, you're selling to your investors, you're selling to your customers, you're selling to strategic partners, you're selling to manufacturers. Every person that you're talking to and interacting with, you're selling. So I think that's going to be a core part of what you're doing, and if that's not your natural strength, then you probably need to find a co-founder that can kind of help you with that. But the other thing I would say is that these skills can be learned. I think all of us have natural things that we're better at than others, but you can learn to do other things. It still may not be your natural, but if you work on it and you identify and say, this is an area where I have concerns, and you just go out and set out a way to practice that and set out a way to work on that, I think you'll get better at it over time.
Seemed like a perfect opportunity for Dr. Allen to put a plug in for his selling and sales management class. If you're going to learn those skills, no better place than right across the street.
You ready? Sure. Our approach is very different to entrepreneurship than probably what you'll hear. Our model is very different. I mentioned earlier that God needs to be in it, and God will send you the right people at the right time. May I give you an example of that?
Yes, please.
The Lord laid on our hearts some time ago to start a coffee shop in town. And 14 years later, that coffee shop became reality. And everything was in place. I am not a barista. I know nothing about that. But the Lord sent a couple from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to join our staff, and they had just sold a pizza business to move to Lynch, Kentucky. And they opened the coffee shop, and it has been an amazing thing what the Lord has done. We now have 3 coffee shops in Kentucky besides our own, and we have 5 states that now want to franchise the coffee shop. Now, I didn't do anything in that. I just provided an opportunity, and the Lord sent the right people. And I know that's a different model. You can go out and hire folks, or my take is you can pray and let God send them to you. It's your choice. He'll let you do either one. So that's a little different model, I think, than most. Thank you.
I'd like to call that networking. And a lot of you young people haven't discovered how powerful networking can be, especially if you're excited and you're enthused about what your travel and your discoveries are. But the people you meet through your life, if you keep in touch and you find out where they are and you share what is happening and what your problems are that you see as opportunity, you'd be surprised that would come out of that.
So we have a lot of tremendous ideas here at the Asbury Project. And as our students go forward and launch their companies, we want them to succeed. One of the goals we have in fostering this event. What are some of the pitfalls that a new startup company should avoid? We talked about the number one thing that an entrepreneur needs to have, or the top piece of advice, but what's something that we should avoid as we go forward launching our ideas and taking the first step into trying to be a company?
I would say it's great to have the vision and to have the business plan in place, but some businesses fail to adapt to what they're seeing when they start their business. If they need to tweak their business model or do something a little bit differently, sometimes they're not flexible enough to do that. And so it's important to have the vision and to have the plan, but also have frequent periods where you're reevaluating how things are going and what kind of feedback you're getting from your customer or whatever service you're offering. And if it's working, great. If it's not, being flexible enough to tweak it somewhat to try and get where you need to be.
this might sound strange, but I'm a theologian, so maybe it doesn't sound so strange. I think we have to be careful about idolatry. And what I mean by that is making sure that we are, as Christians, that we are worshiping God and not our business. Now, that doesn't mean the business isn't of God. It doesn't mean that God's not in it. But I think, sometimes I guess it goes back to what I said about means in the end. We just have to be really careful, I think, not to have our identity in the business so much that we lose our identity in Christ. And that's a fine line to walk, because when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting up something, you're giving birth to something, so much of you is in it. And your self-worth, your value really ebbs and flows with the success or the failure of that business or that entrepreneurial thing that you're doing. So I think you just have to be really careful to guard your heart and make sure that whatever you're doing doesn't become an idol.
Kind of to add to what he was saying, I think as entrepreneurs, we're going to come up with an idea, we're going to present an idea, we're going to run with the idea, and then you're going to have people, you're going to have the world, you're going to have circumstances that will throw up, we'll say problems, which are opportunities for us, right? But it'll create such negativity around you that you become your own worst enemy. You'll allow those thoughts to start going through your mind. So I think for an entrepreneur, when you're looking at the largest pitfall is stay out of your head. Stay focused on your vision. And when someone comes and tells you that you can't do something, then try harder. And that, I think that for me personally, it's the never stop trying. If I stop trying today and decide tomorrow that I'm not going to run a business anymore, what if tomorrow the number one client would have walked into the door or called me up and needed my services, and I decided today that I wasn't going to do my work anymore, and tomorrow somebody needed me. So I think for a lot of times it's negativity that'll come through, that'll just start coming at you. And I don't know if anybody else here agrees with that, but there are people out there that will doubt everything you're doing. And you just have to, again, remember your passion, remember your vision, guard your heart, and stay focused on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think a lot of times if we are trying to do something good in the community or something, like he was saying, as far as with the coffee shops, and the people came to him 14 years later. Now, what if they decided this coffee shop idea was a terrible idea in year 10? We wouldn't be looking at a 5-state franchise opportunity for them. So I think a lot of times it's just, if you don't write down your passion, if you don't write down your goals, and you don't put them where you can see them every day, then the negativities will start to eat away at you, and you won't have the passion anymore. You won't have the desire anymore.
How about a question from our audience?
I was just wondering if anyone had ideas for internationals and visa holders as regards starting businesses here in the U.S.
Anybody?
I think the answer to that is the answer I used to always advise my kids. If you're trying to help people, meet them at their hurt place, whether it's international or local, wherever God goes. Meet them there, and they will clarify what needs to be done and what the hurt is. And that's where you can start working and communicating.
I had the recent opportunity, in fact, several times, to go to Haiti and assist in the work there. And we did leadership training, but in addition to that, we saw where the people were. And if you're familiar with Haiti and the problems there, you know that people need money to exist. And they'll collect plastic or whatever to make a few pennies to get by. And so when we were there, we looked around and saw all these goats everywhere. And goats in Haiti are expensive. They cost $50 a piece. And so we got with a group of people and said, well, why don't you start a goat ministry here? They said, well, what is that? And I said, well, buy goats and let them have kids and give the kids away and let them raise goats, give you one back and sell the rest. Then they have an automatic income. And so we bought 50 goats for them. And now they have extended that and expanded that. Not only are they doing goats and becoming quite successful, 250 goats at last count. And now the people are involved in chicken, growing chickens in this chicken house, which all sprang from that one idea of just seeing goats running around. And that was the international part that we had, and it's been quite successful. Just ordinary folks raising goats, but they're making money at doing that. Yes.
Can I just clarify this? I was actually talking about documentation, like government procedures for internationals and visa holders. Assuming I have a business idea and I want to start it here, I imagine it won't be quite the same as an American. So does anybody have ideas, like practical ideas, documentation, government procedures, and stuff like that?
I don't really have expertise in this area, but it just occurs to me that one approach might be, and you'd still want to check out some of the legal issues around this, might be partnering with somebody who is a citizen in the country where you are not. And that might be a way to kind of jumpstart your ideas. You'd obviously want to have real clear understandings with your partner about, you know, how things are going to work on the financial side and all that sort of thing. But even then, there may be some intricacies to, you know, doing business as an entrepreneur when you're not a citizen that you'd want to check out. And you might want to look and see what sort of resources that there are through the federal government, do some internet searching and just, you know, try to find some things out. You might find an agency or some non-governmental agencies that could help you, give you some guidance on that as to how to do that.
So as our entrepreneurs take their next steps, where do we look for money? Because it will take money to launch some of our ideas. What are some of the resources that they can look into, places that they can go and ask when they're moving from the idea stage into really the seed funding stage?
Okay, so for me, with my first business, not the one I started when I was 15, because that really required no money, but my first actual business plan writing, I went to the Small Business Administration here in Kentucky. Fantastic way to start, because they will lead and guide you, and then they funnel you down through to the banking system. That was one way that I started a business. Another way is, this is going to be funny, but ask my mom and papa, ask mom and dad, ask your friends that may have parents who are investors. The young man who was talking about selling, you will learn pretty quickly how to sell your business and your idea when you're looking for ways to make it get off the ground. So those were a couple avenues that I took for myself. And save your own money and put your own money to the test, because if you start spending your money versus someone else's, you kind of take a little bit more passion about it. When you're looking at losing your $10,000 versus someone else's $10,000, it's a little different situation.
So one of the big things that will determine where money can come from is the risk of your business. So if your business is a relatively low-risk type business, then you can do avenues such as bank loans and SBA type loans and things like that. If your business is a much higher risk type of business, then you will have to look at other mechanisms. Because if your business is, you know, I have an idea to cure cancer, an idea to fly to Mars, that's probably not going to be bankable. So you're going to need to have some other options that you look at. So I think one of the first things to do when you're looking to try to find financing, well, first of all, the friends, families, founders, fools, whatever the 3 Fs you want to choose, that's almost always going to be where you start. And then from there, you have to progress based on where your business is and the types of risk that are affiliated with your business. So the first thing to do is to kind of assess what level of risk you're sitting at, and if you can mitigate those risks with very early stage work, whether it's going out and talking to customers, whether it's bringing on initial customers and getting some early sales with very minimal type of early investment. Those kinds of things can really help you to be able to progress into things that are much easier to do in terms of financing. If you're not able to do those things, then you'll have to look at some other things, whether it be investment type of options or grant type programs, depending on what kind of a business you're looking at. So, anybody else?
There are several programs available. I don't know if you're aware, but every major agency in the federal government has a faith-based head to that. And they are looking for entrepreneurs in the faith-based area that they can tag on to help them in starting new businesses. We recently had a faith convening over in Hazard, and Aaron from the Department of Commerce was there, and he gave me a call and wants to know about how we can partner together as the federal government and a faith-based organization. And then there are other things, like I'm on the board of directors of Kentucky Highlands Investment Corporation out of London, and we have a microloan program. It's a CDFI, and then we make business loans to small businesses of different, up to like $1 million or so. And so there are a lot of funding avenues that you could pursue as a faith-based group.
This might be a comment for later stage startup companies, but you need to think about what type of ownership structure that you would like to see your company, your business grow into. So for example, if you want to keep control as much as possible, then maybe you pursue funding in forms of loans or something like that. If you would like to, on the other hand, take a business partner who will invest some money in your company for a percentage of the ownership, that might be another opportunity to consider as well. There's a plus and minus to that. The plus could be you could get an investor who can help fund you and mentor you and maybe has some skills to complement what you have. The downside is that you're not the only one making decisions anymore. So you have to share that decision-making process, and that could be a downside as well. But that's, you need to think about what you would like the ownership structure of the business to be as you grow a little bit more.
It may seem obvious, but if you're a young person and you have a vision of a great idea, what I think you should do is think about who else has been like you and write to them and ask them what they did and what they advise you to do. And you'd be surprised many times they will connect you to the very resource you need.
Any other questions from our audience? Yes, down front.
So Jerry kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I was curious about, obviously, the importance of networking. And my real question is tips on not only building it, but also maintaining your network once you have it.
I love to grow my business through networking. It's the best advertising that you can do. One of the ways that you work with a network is you find the people that you want to associate with, okay? It's not all the time when you go into a room and you sit down with a group of people, do you want to work with them? So you will start to select who your network is, because they are going to be your walking billboard. They're going to be your walking advertisement. I'm a member of a business, it's called BNI, which is Business Networking International. It's all over the world, whatever. But at the end of the day, these 17 people that I go and see every week, they are my sales force. They are my walking billboard. My Girls for Girls group, and what I'm able to do with them is not only have them promote me, but I have resources to be able to send out to my clients or those around me. And that's where the selection process comes into play. You got to be careful about who you're networking with, because once you start referring them out, you kind of put your reputation on the line, correct? Okay. Now, how do you maintain these relationships is all about how you would want to have a friendship. Business relationships are equivalent for me as friendships. You want to try to, you pick, for me, I pick out my top networking folks that I like to network with, that I know is going to be able to we're going to have residual business going back and forth with one another, and I make it a point to put them on my calendar once every 4 to 5 weeks, whether it be a coffee, whether it be lunch, whether it be a phone call, whether it be an email, and I'm very strategic on how I pick and choose how I'm going to use my time with that particular person I'm networking with. Because time is money at the end of the day. So I have to be very efficient. And when you have a large network, I have a close network of friends of about 120 people that I like to be able to be in touch with for every 4 to 6 weeks. And the reason is it just gives me the ability to be in front of them. It gives me the ability to share with my new idea that I'm doing, refresh their memory on what it is that my business is doing, but also how can I help them? Because it's not always a take relationship. In B&I, it's called, we use this philosophy called giver's gain, which is I give business to you, in return you're going to want to try to give business to me. Okay, so but to be intermingled with a network is very important, especially for if you're going into a business that has a lot of, you have or you're client-based, you're service-based, you want to be able to develop relationships so that way when someone says, hey, my air conditioning isn't working or my heat isn't working, then immediately you think in your head, oh, I know this guy, I meet with him every week, he owns a wonderful HVAC company, here you go, here's his phone number, oh, you want me to text him for you? And then he'll be at your house in the next day, or when he can. So that makes you powerful to your network. Okay, that makes you the person that everybody's going to come to and go to. I love networking. I love it. I think it's just very powerful. I come from a financial institution that believed in residential door knocking, and I hated it. Why would you want to go door knock when I can go spend an hour and a half with some people that may be able to expose me to their network? If you really want to test your love for what you do, go residential door knocking.
One thing that I would say, I'm not a huge fan of tools like Constant Contact, and there's a bunch of different ones out there, so nothing against that particular brand, but those types of email blasting programs and things like that. As you begin to grow your network, those types of things become very impersonal, and you need to find a way to connect with people personally and to find a way to make whatever that communication is to be more personal. And there's tools that you can use, and there's definitely tricks and an art form of doing that, but learn those things. One thing that I have seen done very, very well from a number of different companies that I work with is to send out kind of a digest email, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months, that just says, hey, just wanted to fill you in on some things that have happened with the company recently, or some milestones that we've achieved, and this is where we're headed in the next 2 months. And then when you come back to them 2 months from now, you're like, hey, I told you I was going to do this, and I actually did it. That builds credibility. And so when they see that you're setting goals and that you're meeting those goals, then that really means a lot about you, and then they're going to be much more interested in following up with you.
All right, to give you a few moments to network, we'll go ahead and stop here. We have a short break. We're going to reconvene in about 8 minutes. And Dwight Gibson, who was our chapel speaker this morning at the university, will be presenting For the Life of the World, a 7-part video series, and talking about some of what is involved in that video. And we'll have the opportunity to watch one of the episodes as well. So hang out in the lobby. You're welcome to hang out in here, network with our presenters. Let's give them a round of applause.